background. This is the February 13, 2018 meeting of the Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission. The first item on our agenda are the meeting minutes from January 30 and January 9, 2018. From January 30, sorry. Does everybody have a copy of that?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Francis. Second by Commissioner Corcoran. Does anyone have any comments or discussion on those? Okay. I saw them. I didn't see any corrections. All right, we have a full slate, so no alternates on for this this evening. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are adopted unanimously. Next is 1173 North Benson Road. It's a request of Fairfield University for a 100% release of a $39,920 bond pertaining to site improvements for an addition to the Barone Campus Center in a AA zone.
Mr. Chairman, this was a special exception application. It was approved 2 years ago. You've got an email in your packet from the engineering recommending 100% bond release. We concur.
Very good. I did see the email. Can I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Noonan.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Francis. So I did see the email. Staff also seconds that. So, any other discussion?
No.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The bond is released unanimously. Next is 2031 Reading Road, request of Attorney Peter Ambrose for a 90-day extension for filing a final subdivision map. This is a second extension.
It is. This was a two-lot subdivision. This is the second and last potential extension for recording the final map.
Okay. And that is as of right.
Yes, sir.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Noonan.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Francis. This is as of right. Any other comment? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The extension is granted unanimously. Next is new applications to recommend a public hearing. 1865 Black Rock Turnpike, special permit application of Katona Corner LLC for an addition to enclose an existing patio in the design commercial district.
This is a small addition for the building at the corner of Black Rock and Katona, where Billy's Bakery is located. Does require a special permit. It does require a public hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
Move to public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Noonan, second by Commissioner McAleese. Commissioner Noonan. Are we quiet tonight? Oh, sorry. Just calling you out, Tom. Very good. Public hearing is required. Any other comment? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Let's move to public hearing unanimously. 571 Bronson Road, re-subdivision application of the estate of Georgia Boria for 2 lots in an A zone.
I don't have any other explanation beyond this is a two-lot re-subdivision. It does require a public hearing. This is the section of Bronson Road that lies between the Sturgis Road Bridge and I-95. It's the lower part of Bronson Road.
Okay,
It does require a public hearing.
very good.
Move to public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Noonan, second by Commissioner McAleese. Noonan, McAleese. Public hearing is required. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Let's move to public hearing unanimously. Next is old business. Zoning regulation amendment, application of Edward Mazereski to amend section 12.5.17.5 of the zoning regulations regarding exercise studios. And I'm going to call the next item as well so that you can summarize that together. I'd like to talk about those together. 454 Tungus Hill Road, special exception application of Edward Mazereski to establish an exercise studio, martial arts, in a portion of an existing building in the neighborhood design district.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the applicant proposes to amend section 12.5.17.5 of the regulations to include exercise studios not to exceed 4,000 square feet as a permitted use, as a permitted special exception use in the neighborhood design business district. This section currently permits dance studios. We had an application several months ago in which the commission felt that a yoga studio fell under the dance studio umbrella at a different location, but the applicant seeks to establish a martial arts studio in a portion of an existing building and is therefore seeking to expand the scope of the permitted uses. The considerations for a regulation amendment are similar to that for zone change. Number one, is the proposal consistent with the plan of conservation and development? Number two, does time, experience, and responsible planning for contemporary or future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the proposed regulation amendment? Has it been demonstrated that the proposal is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town? Four, does the proposed amendment promote a level of development that would serve to protect property values in the neighborhood and enhance the community? Number five, would the proposed amendment permit a level of development that would increase undue traffic congestion? The companion application to this is the special exception application. This property is on the easterly side of Tungus Hill Road between Scap Dodge and the Tungus Hill Car Wash. The existing building is retail on the first floor with a partial second floor with offices. There's an 18-space parking lot to the rear of this building, access from Marlboro Terrace, and there is on-street parking permitted on Tungus Hill Road along the street frontage. This applicant is seeking to establish a martial arts studio in space that for many years was occupied by a religious book and gift shop. That shop has been closed for several years and the space has been vacant since. We've had a number of proposals floated by the owner of the building with prospective tenants, but as you know, the permitted retail uses in the neighborhood design district is a truncated list from the general business district regulations, so none of them have really fit squarely within that context, and this applicant has seen fit to try to make an amendment for that purpose. The parking for exercise and fitness uses is the same as that for retail. Therefore, the proposal does not create a use that demands more parking than what the previous use was. In the relevant standards for consideration for a special exception are found in section 27.4. Is the type, location, character, and size of the building in harmony with and conform to the appropriate and orderly development of the town and neighborhood and not hinder or discourage the use of adjacent property? Is the nature and location of the use of the buildings shall be such that there's adequate access for fire protection? 3, are the streets serving the proposed use adequate to carry prospective traffic with provision made for entering and leaving the property without creating undue hazard or congestion? And 4, is the proposed use in compliance with the plan of conservation development? That is what I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you very much. Could I have a motion so that we can start discussing this?
Yeah, I would move to approve the proposed zoning regulation amendment and to approve the special exception application.
Okay, so we'll get a motion, so we have a motion to approve both items by Commissioner Levy. Second by Commissioner Corcoran. So we can talk about both of them now, however we want, and then figure out what we want to do with that. Commissioner Levy, do you want to start?
Sure.
I have some thoughts.
I think expanding the use to include exercise studios is consistent with dance studios. Both are exercise facilities, they're basically open spaces, similar to a yoga studio as well, which we have approved in the past, I understand. So I think it is consistent with the current regulations. I don't think it'll have any major impact, in terms of future conditions, since I think it's consistent with what's allowed. I think it's warranted for the general health, since it promotes health, and that's something we want to promote for the town. I think it's consistent with the neighborhood. It'll promote the property values, and based upon the use and what we heard in terms of the hours of this facility, I don't see any undue problem with traffic or congestion. And again, in terms of the special exception, it is in harmony with the neighborhood along Tunxus Hill there. And based on that, I think, I don't foresee any problems with traffic and so forth, considering the hours. So for those reasons, I support both the amendment to the regulation for purposes of clarity and also the special exception to permit this use.
Okay. Thank you very much. Commissioner Corcoran, any comments?
Commissioner Levy covered my points. I don't have anything to add.
Okay. So I appreciate everything that Commissioner Levy said. My thought was, can we not approve this under one of the already enumerated, permitted uses? We touched on that during the public hearing. Commissioner Noonan, you and I had a brief exchange. Mr. Wendt, is there any way that we could approve this under one of the existing permitted uses?
Well, the only thing that would be a match would be what this commission opined with respect to the yoga studio, that was akin to a dance studio. I mean, the dance studio application is, just to go back in time a little bit, was specific to a certain location. It was on Fairfield Woods Road near Stratfield, the second floor at the time of what was there's a veterinary office right behind the mobile station there. It was a use that occupied the second floor of that building for a period of time. And when that application was made, they didn't propose, that applicant didn't propose a broader indoor recreational use. They were only interested in doing a dance studio, so that was what was proposed.
Yeah.
In a fairly recent application, this commission thought that a yoga studio fell under that umbrella. So if you believe that an exercise or a martial arts studio as proposed here is akin to a dance studio, you could approve the special exception application if that is your interpretation of that regulation, and not amend the regulation.
Right. So, thank you. So, my thought is that, martial arts is choreographed movement. That is the essence of dance. They're not going to have tournaments. That was a condition of approval. That was one of the things I wanted to also mention as conditions of approval. And, I don't want to get too tricky about, the interpretation of our permitted uses, but, if a yoga studio is dance, I don't understand the difference between martial arts and yoga in this context. And, amending the regulations is really, it's not unheard of, but, we try not to amend our regulations as much as we can, is my thought. So I throw it out there for people to comment. To me, choreographed movement is the essence of dance. Martial arts, as I understood from the applicant in this studio, meets that definition. Commissioner Noonan?
I'll speak to that and then ask a question more for the chair. When we went through the yoga application, I was fine following along with the idea that it was choreographed movement, but when you first talk about dance and yoga, I think people understand that there is a difference. And at the time, we didn't have a zoning application in front of us. We just had a special permit, and I think we all felt comfortable granting the permit at the time without having to require that they come back for an application to amend. Now we've almost gone we're being asked to go another step with martial arts, which I acknowledge is choreographed movement, but again seems distinct from both yoga and dance, and farther away from dance than I would think at yoga. Are you, Chair, concerned that by, I understand amending regulations should be done I guess sparingly, reasonably sparingly.
Right.
Are you concerned, I mean, I think the 4,000 square foot is a good condition to keep it contained. Are you afraid of more of a slippery slope to see a fitness edge?
Yeah. No, that's exactly what
Okay.
my concern is. You know, the dance application and the martial arts proposal are for classes. You know, you have a group of 8, 10, 12 people in a class. They come and go, and that's the way the applicant here explained his you know, his business model. That was the business model of the dance studio, and you know, we did express a little bit of concern about whether there was going to be a regular inflow and outflow of people, or if they were going to be more organized. And you know, he said, no, it's going to be organized. It's going to be classes, and it's not just you know, a free for all. Well, you know, we say exercise studio and or exercise use, 4,000 square foot. That's a pretty big. You know,
Related to a private fitness, yeah.
a private fitness place, you know, that can service a lot of people, and yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about that.
With the chair, because I almost hesitate not doing an amendment, because as we don't set precedents doing this, we try and be consistent, we don't set precedents.
Yeah.
5 years down the road, somebody comes in asking for something similar, and then a future commission just says, no, it's not dance, and that's the end of it. Can we amend, just say specifically martial arts instead of exercise? Maybe put both yoga and martial arts in there just to be consistent at this point, and just start to, instead of being
Well, we're allowed to narrow. We're allowed to narrow the proposed
yeah, instead of being broad
regulation.
with exercise, I guess at least at this point, martial arts, though, we also have a yoga out there, so I mean, maybe that doesn't need to be worried about now, but at least now, martial arts, with that, martial arts limited to 4,000 square foot?
I don't know, Commissioner Levy. I mean,
Yeah.
how do people feel about the idea that it is just an exercise facility, max 4,000 square foot in the neighborhood design district?
Well, whether we call it an exercise facility or studio, what I like about studio is I think in terms of an open space, like a dance studio, that's different than a gym or a training facility. So studio connotes sort of an open place where you have classes, and I think we should amend it, because otherwise, if somebody wants to come before us with a Pilates studio next, I mean, is Pilates choreographed movement, or, you know, I think let's call it what it is. It's a
Good question.
facility where you have
But
exercise
cycling,
or a studio,
is that cycling
and it
class?
makes sense.
Spin class,
Spin classes.
is that choreographed?
Nah, you know,
I mean,
now we're right. I don't know, but I think these are the implications, though, that we need to take into account, and for that reason, I say I'm a little bit hesitant about, you know, amending the regulations when we don't need to. And if we can approve this under the dance, you know, permitted use, then we don't get into any of these questions. But again, I don't want to seem like it's pushing that too far, you know. Commissioner.
So if we don't include exercise, I mean, so say in the future we have an application for a small gym in a neighborhood, which doesn't seem to be a bad idea.
Maybe not.
But it could be a big traffic problem based on what we see at the other gyms.
okay.
So by doing what you suggest, we just postpone that whole thing until there is such an application,
Yeah.
which is fine.
Yes. If folks are comfortable with the idea that martial arts studio is, you know, would logically fall under the dance as a permitted use, dance studio. Commissioner Francis?
Yes, I'm comfortable with leaving it the way it is and comparing martial arts to dance, because it is a type of choreography. And it avoids exactly what you say. I think that's a good idea, good suggestion.
Thoughts?
I couldn't hear her.
Couldn't hear her, okay. She said that she thinks that it is appropriate under the dance banner, as it is a choreographed movement, as I suggested, and she likes the idea of avoiding, this amending the regulations if we don't need to.
And I agree. I think the common thread with yoga, dance, martial arts, and now Pilates is a group activity where people are showing up at the same time. There's a set time limit. The class is from 4 to 5 p.m., whatever it may be. It's not a gym where people are coming and going as they please on their own schedules. So in that regard, I think if it's a group activity, which martial arts is, it's a class, then if we can get away with not opening it up to fitness world or fitness edge, I would like to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
One concern that was voiced during the public response was that parking could have been a problem because of the car dealership. I don't think this applicant should be penalized for what a car dealership is doing in the neighborhood. I heard a neighbor complain about how tight it is because of all the cars from the dealership. I don't think that should bear on this
Okay.
applicant.
Very good. Any discussion on those points? Anyone? Commissioner Levy?
Again, I think the regulations should apprise the public as to what's permitted, and rather than splitting hairs on, whether it's Pilates or yoga or dance and whether there's similarities, I think exercise studio adequately describes what it is we're approving and what future applicants should expect to be approved.
Well, in terms of narrowing, and this may be a common, a good way to solve that question, we could say exercise studio, such as yoga, Pilates, martial arts, or other, or
Class-based kind of system.
you know,
Leave the other off.
no,
Leave the other off.
leave the other off.
You're already
Just-
saying such as.
Yes, right. I mean, we're entitled to
Well,
refine that, narrow that proposal.
You could. There's two other things to consider potentially is perhaps reducing the 4,000 square feet to a lesser number. 4,000 square feet was chosen because that's a number that we restrict certain retail and office occupancies to individual tenant occupancies in the neighborhood design district. This space is substantially less than 4,000 square feet. It's 2,700 square feet. Even at 4,000, I mean, that's substantially less space than a typical larger, like Fitness Edge or Planet Fitness. Those are...
That's 4,000 square foot fitness center gym is that's a large gym.
It depends on what you're doing in there, but it's substantially smaller than a Fitness Edge type of thing. So
Yeah.
if that's your concern in your, the overall size, you might want to consider
1,000 or 1,500.
reducing the 4,000 foot number to a smaller number, because you could conceivably have a personal trainer type of use in small space
40 by 20.
that's
So-
nowhere near 4,000 feet.
So this
Okay, but-
is 1,500 square feet,
It's 2,700.
2,700 square feet.
So,
Yeah. The application.
Do you know offhand, have a sense of the two places right here, this Olay, I think it is, soccer, like what the size of that is? How did that qualify as, is that a fitness place? Is it a school?
Well, it's indoor recreational facility. It's in a
Indoor
design
recreational
commercial
facility.
district, so it's a broader...
Okay, and so the orange one,
The
Couple
issue
doors down.
here is, this is a neighborhood district, and it's a narrower definition of the permitted uses. The bigger fitness places, like, Olay or other places, are primarily a design commercial districts or industrial district where we have a broader heading of indoor recreational facility that encompasses just about any type of of fitness type of use, or indoor sports, or recreation.
There was a recent personal training gym that opened, I think it's called Urban Training on Kings Highway. That couldn't be more than 2,000 square feet.
No, we have a variety of smaller fitness type uses all over the place. So, not unique to the neighborhood districts. So, you know, on the flip side of the coin, if there's, you know, it is still a special exception use.
It's true.
So you've got, you know, it's not like it's, you know, so if you're inclined to take a broader view of what a dance studio is and be inclined not to amend the regulation, it still requires a special exception application.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I still like narrowing the proposal, though, to say exercise studio, namely dance studio, martial arts, yoga, Pilates, or personal training.
Is it worth,
Think it, but
is it worth, because I think everybody's got the sense that we would like to see this martial arts studio go forward. Is it worth at this point putting it under a dance studio, and then if we see the need, or even in the next executive session, rewriting the regulations at that point, so we're not doing it on the fly tonight?
you know, I mean,
So I stand by my initial thought is that yoga and martial arts seem to be going a little bit away from dance studios. I'm happy to put it under that umbrella for now, but Commissioner Levy makes a fair point that, you know, regulations should clearly communicate what we mean by dance studios. And I would think it's fair to say I would not have expected yoga and martial arts to necessarily be under dance.
well, I mean, I think that Mr. Wentz comment about the special exception being on a case-by-case basis, you know, requiring us to consider, you know, each application is probably that's the best thing that I've heard, to, you know, amend, you know,
I just add,
include exercise studio, you know, grant the special exception application here and rely on our case-by-case judgment, you know, for each application.
and I was going to perhaps amend the motion in light of the fact that it is a neighborhood design district, to perhaps change it to 3,000 square feet.
To perhaps what?
To change it to a 3,000 square foot limit.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's too exclusive or...
We don't have any basis for that.
No, and that was exactly going to be my comment. Like, I don't see any reason to do that at this point, because it's arbitrary, I think, at the moment, you know. So, all right. Well, I've been convinced to you know, vote in favor of the motion that's on the table. I think we've talked about it.
Sorry, you wanted the motion as it stands?
Yeah, I think, I mean, given everything that we've talked about, I'm comfortable now with, you know, amending the regulation to include exercise studio and granting the, you know, the special exception application. You know, but particularly given that, you know, we have to review everything on a case-by-case basis. But anybody else? No? Okay, motion's on the table to approve both the amendment as well as the special exception application. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The motions are carried unanimously.
That was for both actions.
For both, correct.
And you had, I believe I heard you say, although, that you wanted the condition that there'd be no tournaments to be held on the premises. Was that what you wanted?
Yep, that's correct. The applicant stated that at the public hearing.
Okay.
Do we need to incorporate that in a formal motion, or do you think that's sufficient?
I'm good.
All right. Next is 1675 Post Road, compliance application of 1675 Post Road Partners LLC pertaining to a 12-unit residential and retail development submitted pursuant to 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes in the Center Design District.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this application proposes a 5-story, 12-unit residential building with a small retail component on the ground floor. This application is proposed as a set-aside development pursuant to Section 8-30G of the Connecticut General Statutes. In a typical zoning application, you are weighing the proposal against criteria of our regulations. In an affordable housing application, our regulations are not the measuring stick for consideration, as this commission knows. The commission cannot deny an 8-30G application on the basis of non-compliance with the regulations. For a denial to stand up to an appeal, the commission must demonstrate that the denial is necessary to protect the public interest in the health and safety, and that there is sufficient evidence in the record to support that conclusion. In the identified public interest at risk clearly outweighs the need for affordable housing, and further, that there are no alternatives that can be imposed that would mitigate that identified public health and safety issue. Here we have 12 residential units proposed. 8 are one-bedroom units, 4 are proposed as two-bedroom units. Of the 4 units required to be set aside as affordable units, 2 are proposed to be one-bedroom and 2 two-bedroom units. There was some discussion about how that is, the sizes of those units, particularly with respect to the 5th floor unit. The average size of the 12 residential units is 1,002 square feet. And the average size of the 4 units to be proposed to be set aside as affordable units is 1,071 square feet. So actually, the affordable units are slightly higher than the average size unit. The fire department has reviewed and approved these plans contingent on the applicant installing an automatic fire sprinkler system on the adjacent apartment building at 1677 Post Road. The applicant has an ownership interest in the adjacent parcel through a 99-year ground lease. That ownership entity is A.H. Fairfield Acquisitions, LLC, with the same principal involved in 1675 Post Road Partners, LLC. They have provided a letter, as was discussed at the hearing, confirming the statements made that they agree to install that fire sprinkler system as a condition of approval, and further confirming their approval of the driveway access and 7 parking spaces for this proposal that extend beyond the property at 1675 Post Road. Just clarifying some things with respect to some of the comments that were made at the hearing. There was an example made in Old Saybrook about a mixed-use proposal. I did reach out to the staff at Old Saybrook, and this is in the context of the discussion about the commercial component versus the residential piece. That example is not a direct comparison because there were 2 separate applications there. There was a standalone commercial component and a standalone residential component. So they made separate applications there. There was some comments alluded to about the Department of Housing and what their opinion was. I did speak to Mike Santoro at Department of Housing, and his view was that there ought to be separate application components for commercial and residential, and that 8-30G doesn't necessarily give authority over commercial regulation. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that. You do have an opinion now from the town attorney, which you have, that reaches a bit of a different conclusion. And the only analogy I want to raise there is if this were a 100% residential proposal without any commercial use at all, that in and of itself would be at variance with our commercial regs that require, in the absence of an 8-30G application, commercial ground floor use. So, there's no, as we discussed at the hearing, there's some reference to mixed use in the 2 court cases that were submitted for the record. There really isn't any direct track record here, and we do have received an opinion from the town attorney, which you have, in which he concludes it would be up to the commission to determine whether a subject application is in fact a bona fide 8-30G application and not a sham application, if you will, to quote the Greenwich case. And that's all I have at this point, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Well, thanks very much for that. As you mentioned, that we did get an opinion here, a memo from Mr. Lesser, Attorney Lesser, the town attorney. As you noted, that is a bit at odds with the comments we got from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the state office. I had a few questions for Attorney Lesser, and wasn't available to be here tonight. He can be here at our next meeting in 2 weeks. So it was my, I would entertain a motion to table this item tonight, so that we can have a little bit more time to consider all these issues, and to have Attorney Lesser come at our next meeting, so that we can ask him some questions and discuss this more fully with him before we make a decision on this application. So I put that out there as a suggestion for the commission.
I would move to table until Attorney Lesser can be available. I would suggest perhaps any questions that we might have might be directed to him by email in advance of the meeting, so that he'd have the opportunity to be prepared to specifically opine on those issues.
Sure. Thanks. So motion to table the item by Commissioner Levy, second by Commissioner McAleese. Okay. Any other discussion on that motion? Thanks. Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Levy. I would just say that the opportunity also always exists for you or anyone else to pick up the phone and speak to Mr. Wendt to communicate your questions and issues. Mr. Corcoran?
This is contingent on Mr. Lesser appearing?
So, do we have an extension on what's timing?
We do. We have time. We have until March the 12th to vote on it. I spoke with Attorney Fallon post-hearing. He provided me a authorization for a 30-day extension. I did speak with Mr. Lesser before. He's away this week, but he did communicate to me that he'd be available to be present at the next meeting.
Next meeting?
Could we vote at the next meeting?
We can. We'll be in executive session. Attorney Lesser will be here to answer any questions. We will be able to make motions and to vote on the item if we desire to do so. If March 12th is the deadline, we then would also have the opportunity to, depending upon what we discuss, table it again. And I think the first meeting in March is March 9th. Is that right?
It is the 13th.
The 13th. So we would have to vote. So
In the absence of an additional extension,
yeah,
you'd have to vote.
right. So I mean, there's always an opportunity there to get an extension. But we'll take it one step at a time. We've got the time to do what we have here, to have Attorney Lesser come in. So does that satisfy your?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Any other questions?
I just have...
Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, just perhaps staff could check on the issue of sprinkling, put a sprinkle system in the, was it Bishop Curtis joining? What the timetable would be? Would that be put in before or at the same time?
Well, I would envision that as a subject to whatever if this is going to go forward, but I would envision that as a condition that would need to be met before a certificate of occupancy would be issued for the proposed building if it's to be built. To do it concurrently, I would think would be the way to go. I mean, a stricter view of that is you theoretically could say we're not going to issue a building permit until they sprinkler the building, but a concurrent installation would seem appropriate in my view, if this building is going to go forward.
All right. So the minutes can reflect that Commissioner McAleese has adjourned himself, I assume, to the restroom. So he'll abstain from the vote, but the motion on the table is to table the item. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? and abstentions, so we'll consider Commissioner McAleese having abstained. So the item then is unanimously tabled. Next is compliances. 1828 Post Road, compliance application of Boca Rosa Insurance LLC to establish an office use in an existing building in the Center Design District.
Mr. Chairman, this building at 1828 Post Road is adjacent to Hemlock Hardware. It, for the last several years, has been occupied as a retail spa. Boca Rosa Insurance is on the opposite side of Post Road and is looking to occupy this building for their use. The use is permitted in the downtown district. Retail parking gets a little bit of a break. Retail use gets a little bit of a break for parking, so to change the use from retail to office required a variance of parking. There are 4 striped spaces shown on the site plan that you have. There are actually 2 more kind of spaces that are perpendicular to those that are shown that are actually there but not shown on the site plan because they don't necessarily have the backup room, but they are occupied. But bottom line is 3 spaces are required for retail, 9 are required for office. There's 4 spaces arguably plus 2 more that really technically aren't compliant. But the Zoning Board of Appeals saw fit to grant a variance for that a couple of months ago for the use of an insurance office.
So with the variance, this complies with our regulations?
It does, yes, sir.
Very good, thank you. Could I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Commissioner Corcoran,
Second.
second by Commissioner Noonan. Commissioner Corcoran?
I don't see any reason to deny this.
Right. Complies with our regulations, given the variance. Commissioner Noonan?
Yeah, given the variance complies.
Okay. Any other discussion? Motion is to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The compliance is granted unanimously. Next is 665 Commerce Drive, compliance application of Brcd Holdings LLC for an overall sign plan in the Design Commercial District.
This is the trademark building at the corner of Commerce Drive and Black Rock Turnpike. Meeting or 2 ago, this commission approved the first commercial tenant space there for Barbacoa Restaurant. They're now proposing an overall sign plan. They're showing potential tenant sign locations for other tenants. The prototype sign in the plan, if you will, that they're committing to is to do a reverse channel letter type sign with a backer plate, basically the lights shine back to that, so it's kind of a halo lit letter. And they are committing to have consistent signage amongst the tenants as our regulations require. It is in compliance with our sign code.
Right. Very good, thank you. Can I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Noonan. Second by Commissioner Corcoran. Any comments, Commissioner Noonan?
Nothing more.
Commissioner Corcoran? The plans comply with our regulations.
One question.
Commissioner Francis?
Will they be taking down those signs that fill the 4 glass doors right now? Or is that allowed?
That's kind of like window wrapping. I would assume that as they lease up tenant spaces, those individual tenants aren't going to want that decal there, so I would assume, yes, that it was ultimately going to be
The whole thing is
removed.
in Boca Rosa?
No.
No, it's the corner, it's the restaurant, it's the anchor restaurant for the building. The other placards that are shown in the plans are placeholders. But the design that we're approving tonight would enable them to accept a tenant and then to put up signs that are consistent with the overall plan that we're approving tonight.
That's correct, yes. So subsequent signs don't need to be on this agenda if they're in compliance with this plan.
Right, in terms of size, type, and location. Right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, motion on the table is to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The application is approved unanimously. Next, we'll move to public hearing. We take a 2-minute break to reorganize and stretch our legs. So we're in the public hearing phase of our meeting. The first item is 417-427 Reef Road, request of Joseph Grasso for 100% release of a $7,435 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in a B zone.
Thank you. I'm Joe Grasso of 625 Tamworth Drive, Regency Homes, and looking for bond release of property renovated at that location.
Excellent. All work is completed?
All work is completed.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Wendt, any other questions here?
No, we're good, we concur. We have a report from the engineering department. It's just an opportunity for anybody.
Members of the public and so, very good. Any other members have any questions? Very good. Thank you. So
Thank you.
we'll just see if there's anybody, members of the public that have any comments. Thank you. Any members of the public wish to be heard on this? Great. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on this item. Thank you very much. Next item is 783 Kings Highway, special permit and coastal site plan application of 783 Kings Highway LLC pertaining to the construction of a 9-unit residential building in the design commercial district. Yeah, I know it, but
Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Ray Brizio. I'm happy to be before you tonight with regard to the property at 783 Kings Highway, and I represent 783 Kings Highway LLC. This project is an exciting project for us. It's in a DCD district. It is a project that I'll give you a little bit of history on. Our client purchased it. There used to be an old semi-office building home there that had become run down. The client purchased it, cleared the lot, and then was trying to come up with plans. Had seen some of the developments that was going around town, came and talked to us, and originally his idea was to put an additional story on and come in with 15 units, kind of like the project that was approved over on Commerce Drive. This has some issues in that it's in a floodway, so the property would have to go up on, it is up on stilts, and was going to originally thinking to do about 16 units or 15 units and 16 parking spaces. We met with the neighbors that adjoined the property, both the abutter, Mr. Helinski in the back, and the Kings who own the personnel building next door on Kings Highway, and they were worried about the density. They were worried about the amount of units there, given the location on Kings Highway. And then we also met with St. Emery's, who was also concerned about parking. Even though they don't really have much parking, they know a lot of their parishioners use all the adjoining streets. So through a lot of dialogue, a couple months of work, we went back and forth with the neighbors, and we redesigned the project and came in with 9 units with 16 parking spaces. The 9 units will be 9 two-bedroom units. It's interesting, 4 of the units will be on each floor, and then 1 of the units will actually be a townhouse that goes between what looks like the 2nd and 3rd floor, but there's only 2 floors of residence. I'll explain to you as I go through the floor plan. The property, we worked a lot with the town, working out the drainage, getting rid of curb cuts, and making the property work. It really didn't work as a commercial property. Once again, having the property, the first floor would have been at least 4 feet in the air, and then by the time you put down the constraints for a commercial parking lot, you end up with about a 2,000 square foot footprint, and you would have had, the only way to access it would have been off Kings Highway. What we've done is we've eliminated the curb cut on Kings Highway. We've basically constructed a building or planned a building with our architect Mark Andre and our engineers Neil Jane's office that is consistent with the properties in the neighborhood, meaning we have a nice street frontage and a streetscape. If you look at the design of the building, the first floor, which actually looks like a livable first floor, is actually our parking garage. So we're going to have 16 units in a contained parking garage. And although it says we are 3 floors, we are 3 floors because of the parking garage. So when you look at the project is going to face, this is the, let me take it, it's really good. Folks, I know you have a small handout, which makes it a little bit easier. Buildings, Mr. Andre did a tremendous job of making this attractive building. As you know, is when you come on to Kings Highway into this area, Kings Highway East, you end up, this is one of the first buildings you meet after you get past the Cumberland Farms building. Cumberland Farms, then the office building, then there's 2 smaller little office / buildings, and then this car lot, and then Kings Deli on the other side. If you can remember, it's kind of a mixed bag all the way up and down Kings Highway, where you have properties all up on the street, all have non-conforming parking. Basically, can we move this back for you? I apologize. Let me move this back so it's easier to see. Good. Is that better for everybody? Sure. So,
And just so everybody knows, all of those are in this small packet that we have.
yes, I just didn't know.
I don't.
So I can take you through the small packet, it's just a lot easier.
Whatever you
for
want to do,
this.
I'm just letting everybody know that
Yeah, I'm not seeing that picture.
those they're on the board are in the
Yeah.
small packet.
So what you'll see now is we've designed this project so that we've eliminated the existing curb cut that is on Kings Highway. It was very difficult with regard to getting in and out of the sight lines, everything else. What we've done is you come out of Kings Highway, you turn into the property. There'll be a covered parking garage that has 16 spaces. There's a handicap space, there are bike racks out in front, it's supported to be consistent with the regulation, and 16 parking spaces under the building. What I like about it, and the beauty of this, is that we didn't lose the streetscape, that in effect, it looks like a walkable streetscape, it looks like this is a living area, but that whole first floor that you see is the parking garage. Then you have 2 floors of residential. The 2 floors of residential, as I tried to explain it, you'll see there's 8 units. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all shown as 2-bedroom units. However, the first floor, this corner, which we'll call it the southeast corner of the building, actually is a townhouse. So you'll have an eating and living area on the first floor, and then the second floor will be 2 bedrooms in the back. So it was a good use of the space. It was a good way to make this matter work. This is, as I said, a parking garage with 2 staircases, a little lobby, and an elevator. Once again, it's a very attractive look from the Post Road, from Kings Highway, and from Howard Court. We went to the ZBA. I don't think the commission probably wonders, a couple would need a few variances. And one of the things was to make this matter work.
Can you pull the microphone around to you?
If you'd like me to go through, I'll just take you through
Yes.
part of this design. So one of the issues is, in this district, you're supposed to have 50% commercial, 50% residential. I explained to you why this property didn't work if you were going to put conforming parking there on a commercial lot, on top of the fact that the building would have to be 4 feet in the air, and if you know, for retail, it just doesn't work. We also thought that it would be compatible with the adjoining businesses to having a residential building at night. If you look across the street, you have the old tire. There's a tire place and a tile place, and then you also have 10 or 12 units of housing where some of the buildings are connected, but the parking's all in the rear. We thought it was important to have the covered parking. So that was a variance for the 100 to go to 100%. This really didn't work. If you look up and down Kings Highway, one of the problems you have is they're all small non-conforming lots. They all have non-conforming parking. It's a difficult area from a retail basis. You have basically one shopping center, a little bit towards Villa Avenue, and the rest is just a mishmash of work. We didn't think that a retail spot belonged here. We also thought from a traffic standpoint it'd bring the least amount of traffic and the least amount of congestion with regard to parking. And also what would happen is if we had to put parking on the first floor and a building on the first floor, there would be really no way to screen the parking to make it look like you just wouldn't have an asphalt parking lot in front of the building. So for all those reasons, the ZBA said, you know what, since your lot is unique, it's in a flood zone, it's a corner lot, this makes sense that this should really be residential. The other couple variances was received was reducing the street setback line from 25 feet to 2 feet. All consistent with if you go up and down the block, we're still going to put all the conforming curbs in. We managed to get all our drainage in, and we have no impact on the sight lines. It's been reviewed by engineering. I think if you see there's a letter in your packets that said Laura Pulley's looked at everything and she's okay. We've met all the design standards. So this did go through code review. One of the attractive things about this is, like I said, we're bringing a much more walkable streetscape. In fact, it was one of the things we met with St. Emery's Church. They were happy to see residents. They were a church that was built on a walking parish, and they were happy to see new residents coming into town. So the 2 feet was to keep our maximum amount of setback away from the side yard and the rear yard, which we've done. I have a petition in support from both property owners to the side, and King's Deli across the street was very supportive of the project.
I didn't see those in the record. Do you have those?
Yeah, I'll hand them out. You want me to hand them out now?
Yeah, as well. Thank you.
No problem. Here's the original. Oh, right here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
David Alinsky owns the property directly behind us. His main concern was that we replace the fence. You'll see it on we have a nice clean fence. The fence kind of went over both property lines. We're going to have a brand new fence that joins both properties.
Excuse me,
Yep.
just out of curiosity, it looks like, I mean, the landscape plan shows sidewalks. They're not in the rendering, but they're there. Right?
Correct, yes.
And
yes, by town ordinance, we have to have them.
that's what I thought, but I
Yes.
was just curious.
Yes.
Or it looks like it might be one, but not the other. But are those windows on the garage level on the Kings Highway Street actual windows, or are you going to be like some kind of screen?
No, the actual windows.
Actual glazing on that first floor?
Actual windows.
Because the returning wall back to the next adjacent property looks like it's all just openings. On the right-hand rendering,
On the right hand, those are all the...
looks like they're just openings. I don't see any glazing in there. It's a minor detail. It's not. I'm just curious.
No, those will be windows.
Okay.
The only opening will be the entrance way in and out of the building. Non-window, in other words, it's not going to be a door. It's
Right.
gonna be- So that will be the only direct opening.
Okay. Thank you.
The other variance we received was, and this is once again specific to our site, was from 150%, floor area ratio of 150% to 199.5. We are actually below 150% for living quarters, but since we elected to, I think, beautify the parking garage rather than leave it open, it counted as a floor. So we're below the 150 with regard to living area, but once we enclosed the garage, it counted as a floor, and we had to actually count that floor in our floor area coverage. So the board considered the fact that it was in a flood zone, that had to be parking, and they appreciated the fact that this was better off that it was being shielded. The parking lot was being shielded from the street. And the other we had was reducing from 36 spaces to 16 spaces. The commission would have the ability to cut it in half. The board thought with 9 units, 16 spaces was sufficient, and rather than just seek the board's ability to reduce, you have the ability in the DCD zones because of the mixed-use quality of projects to reduce the parking requirement. The ZBA granted us a waiver. So that kind of took, as you can see in my explanation, all the variants, when you look at them, sound like a lot, but they're all very site-specific to a difficult location, difficult use, a flood zone, and a parking garage that we're trying to make it look better, that allowed the ZBA to give us a variance.
Right. Can we go back to these papers that, petitions?
Yes.
So these are all, were submitted in connection with the variance?
Yes.
At the ZBA?
Yes.
So they're not petitions with respect to this application that's before us
I
at
can
TPC?
represent, they authorized us to deliver.
No,
to-
I
yes.
don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But when you say we have a petition to submit to us, it usually means that there's an issue for which you got 200 people to sign.
Oh, no.
You know, for our purposes. This doesn't relate to the matters before us. This is for the ZBA.
Correct.
Okay. And these are your immediate,
Neighbors, the
Neighbors,
two abutters
abutters.
and the King's Deli directly across
Right.
the street.
okay. So not a petition in the sense that you got a whole bunch of...
And St. Emery's, which is across the street.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
fact, they originally were opposed to the application. We reworked the application, we reduced the units, we changed the unit structure, and took a floor off, and working with the diocese and the parish, we ended up with their support and actually welcoming the project.
So with all of the variances, are there any aspects of our regulations with which you don't comply?
No. No, we do. We comply with, given the variances. I was
Given the
going to
variances.
ask me, is there anything you didn't vary?
I'm not sure there are any regulations left.
I was waiting for
Given the
that.
variance.
I was wondering where this one's going. But, well, the beauty of the ZBA is when you have non-conforming properties in an older part of town, they get to be a little bit creative, and it also in a situation where you obtain a consensus of your surrounding properties, we think it works out pretty well. I know this commission on a number of applications have said, don't come here with a text change, this belongs to a variance if the property's so unique, and we followed that rule in other applications.
Yep.
I can keep going on, I mean, but,
You don't-
it's all pretty straightforward.
Nice.
It's the 9 units, the variances we got with regard to the commercial use. I think the commission understands why commercial really doesn't work there on that first floor. I think Mr. Andre has designed a spectacular building for the entrance to this Kings Highway corridor. Certainly a big improvement over what's there. The buildings are all consistent with the buildings. Almost every building along Kings Highway is within the front setback. And it's funny, as most towns are now moving toward it, they want a streetscape. In fact, in some of the cities, they're changing their regulations to require a maximum setback, so they're pushing everything to the street. All these reasons, I think we satisfy all your special permit standards. I think it's going to be a good improvement to the neighborhood, and I think it's a great entryway to this corridor. I'd be happy to answer any questions. We have our engineer here, we have our architect here.
Sure. Why don't you talk about the coastal site plan application?
Can I jump in on
Yeah.
one question?
Sure.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Commissioner Noonan.
Because I asked this question a few weeks ago with the special permit application, one of the things you have to find is with regard to traffic. I know Kings Highway is,
Correct.
I mean, I know what Kings Highway is, I've driven it and such, but is there any evidence to that this will be able to handle, Kings Highway will be able to handle this?
Well, we didn't conduct a formal traffic study. If the commission wanted an impact study, we could certainly do that. But in this instance, given the small amount of traffic that would be created by a residential community in the non-peak times,
Kings Highway is one of our busiest streets, right?
It is,
Yeah.
and I think by having a typical 9 units, basically a small multifamily structure on a commercial corridor, it certainly is probably the least impacted use that you could have along that corridor. For that reason, neither at the ZBA nor going through the application process will we push for a traffic study. If the commission wanted an impact letter from Mr. Galante, I think we could certainly do it, but in this instance, I think we're common sense and the amount of uses that are available, this is probably the least impacted use, and certainly one that has what we want to say compatible use times with regard to its peak traffic coming in and out. I can be a traffic expert also at some times.
That's why
But,
you get an attorney to do
we
that.
were under the impression that, given the small size of the project, that a traffic study wasn't really necessary in this. One of the things that was important was that we shifted the curb cut on the property from Kings Highway out to Haley Court. So there's more than enough queuing area, and there's more than enough,
And that's is that
that's a dead end.
dead end, yeah, but stop sign or,
Stop sign, yes, there's not a light there, but there is you can cross the street, it's not one of the
take a left and
streets on
right,
Kings
yeah.
Highway that has a curve in the middle. So for all those reasons, we have adequate sight lines, we have adequate queuing in the event. I mean, like I said, it's 9 units.
how many residences are on that side street? Do you remember?
Side Street probably has, I'm gonna guess, 10 to 15 residence buildings down the street to the end of the block, maybe 20.
Parking?
It's all residential, but for King's Deli. We have a neighbor here, so I'm sure he'll tell you. But I think except for King's Deli is the only commercial property that borders Haley Court, and then from there back to the highway is residential homes.
They park on the street then?
A lot of people park on the street. There's a lot of parking on the street.
How does the street look when it's parking on both sides?
Yes.
You can, parking on both sides, can people still, two-way traffic go through, or you have to?
Yes.
We will.
I drove down, it's pretty.
One of the big issues that the church had was, and that's why what they wanted to see a reduction in units. They wanted to make sure that we could park our traffic, our demands on the street, because a lot of the homes.
You mean in the garage?
What's that?
They wanted to make sure, they wanted to make sure that you could park your demands in your garage.
Correct, not on the street.
Not on the street.
Correct.
You misspoke.
Sorry, I apologize. Thank you.
Oh, okay, that's, not bad.
Right. And that's what you did. It was for that reason. And you're comfortable that all of your demand is now going to
Yes.
be within the building?
Yes. And part of the problem, like I said, it's the church. They use that street for their parking. The deli uses that street for its parking. We don't have a problem with that.
Commissioner Noonan?
All set, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Francis?
The trash here the pickup is from...
Haley Court.
It's not under the garage, is it? It's
No.
outside?
Let me get to the plan.
And also, could I have the dimensions of the property and of the building? I was having a hard time finding...
Property dimensions?
And the building dimensions.
Property dimensions are 123. 75 by about 120.
Okay.
Roughly.
And the building? It was the 200% that was getting me. These drawings are just...
105 by 62. In that zone, we're entitled to a 70%, 75% lot coverage, and we're at about 71%.
And
That was not one of the few variances we did not receive.
yes,
So the brick, it's a brick veneer, or what is that material that's on the?
Brick veneer, yes.
And I noticed on the rear elevation, it shows a balcony at the top, sorry, a railing at the top, but we don't have a roof plan, I don't think.
Yes, that's the street condensing unit from the top, I'm sorry.
Okay.
are all the mechanicals on the roof screened? Are they all screened?
Not at the very top. They will be at
Can
the
you
attic.
please state your name for the record?
I'm sorry. My name is Marc Andre. I'm the designer for this project.
So is the roof flat then?
No.
Can you take your microphone? Just grab the mic out of the thing. Thank you.
So you have, this is a parking level. These are the residential level. And then this will be the attic level.
So if you're looking at the building that we see there, there must be a flat area behind those sloped roofs, is that right?
You mean
If I
from
look
here?
at the picture of above there?
Where? You mean right here?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
It's a
fairly
flat
flat,
roof, yeah.
but the mechanical is not at the very top.
okay.
It's not at the top of the mansard roof.
Yeah,
If that's
I got
what you
it,
asked.
I got it.
Okay.
There's an area cut out in the rear of the
Yeah.
property that'll have a
Yeah.
small flat area that.
Well, it's cut out through the whole thing, isn't it?
Right, and
Right.
that's shielded.
Yeah. So, just one minor thing, on the, on this elevation, in the plans, it shows a door.
You mean at the garage level?
Yeah, no, I see, it's obscured by the tree. I got it, never mind.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Levy.
Looking at the code enforcement minutes from June 20th, am I correct that it started out as a proposed 17 residential units and then was dropped to 9?
17, then it went to 15, and then we met with the neighbors. We withdrew our application at the ZBA, met with the church who had some opposition. Some of the abutting neighbors had some concerns. I will mention which is an issue for the neighbor to the east of us. One of the conditions, which would also, we're happy to have as a request as a condition of this approval, is that we wanted us to maintain the existing tree line along the west side of the property. So between our property and the personnel the street, this is really a shutting the building. This is a heavily treed area, which buffers the properties. I can show you a picture. In fact, I'll give everybody some pictures. A quick little tour. So that's a picture of where that tree line is that the neighbor wanted us to maintain, the ZBA put as a condition of approval. Yes. Go ahead. So you'll see, those are right on the property line. So what he's want us to do is we're going to prune anything that comes that's going to get in the way of construction, but the trees won't be removed. And you can see that's the rear. So the property, believe it or not, is already significantly buffered. That's why most of our improvements are small shrubs along the front and a fence and grass along the back, which is also part of our drainage system.
What about trees along Halley Avenue there, or Halley Street, which the tree warden had mentioned? He says,
I mean, there's no real trees along Halley. Halley's been pretty cleared out.
yeah.
What's that?
He's requesting some.
We'd be happy to put street trees.
Mhm.
Would you put them every 20 feet? We can add a street tree every 20 feet, subject to
Sure.
approval by the, five is fine.
Yeah, the tree warden actually had some suggestions there. Now, obviously, this was back when the application was an 830G, but he suggested cherry and plum on the Halley side of the property, and along Kings Highway, 2 shade trees, a sycamore and an oak.
We would be happy to
Or
accept
oak.
those as conditions of approval.
Okay?
No
So,
problem.
just in consultation with the tree warden, through whatever he wants.
We're happy to put those trees in connection.
Okay?
Yeah. And finally, how many bike racks are going in?
I think the bike racks were at least one per unit. I think there's 8, but there's 2 sets of bike racks. You can see them on the plan. There's 2 bike areas over here. Mike, I just think we'll find an area inside the garage where they'll be having some bikes hung so that they don't ride away or walk away.
Yeah, or get wet, and then the elements and all that stuff, you know. So there's also a comment about lighting plan for the garage. Is there proposed lighting in the garage underground?
Yes, but it's all, go ahead, Mark.
There will be sufficient lighting since the garage will be pretty much enclosed.
Okay.
So it will be part of the final construction drawings. And also the garage, just like the entire building, the garage will also be fully sprinkled.
One of the good things about enclosing the garage is you don't have those issues of a well-lit garage, casting light throughout the neighborhood, so.
Sure. Thank you. Commissioner Corcoran, do you have a question?
Oh, it's the same thing I was referring to earlier. I didn't realize that door that's to the right of the garage doors. Sorry, I'm confused again. I don't see the elevation. I'm looking for the. Yeah, it's the elevation at the top left. Yeah. Yeah, and you see the door to the right of the large doors? No, the one down
To the
other
right.
side, to the right. Yeah, that door's not in the plan. That's just mine.
This is just to balance. So for example, as it's coming in, if you walk into this building, so you have two ways to get in. You can either use the parking garage, or keep walking in. So you can use this as your main staircase. So this will be the access door. This one is just to balance the front elevation.
So it's not a real door?
It's not going to be a functional door.
Okay.
This will be the active door. Because we inside this is just merely to balance the door.
Yep.
So this will be a fixed door, just like the
Or just more of an architectural, it's just architectural detail.
otherwise it might look a little,
Yeah, I got it.
little bit off.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, Attorney Rizzio.
You're welcome.
Is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard? Please come forward. Just, if we could just have your name.
Yeah, it's Kathy Panderlightem.
Thank you.
My big concern is the parking. I live at Haley Avenue, across from where this is going, and our family's owned the brick house where King's Deli is for probably about 90 years, along with the White House next to the dumpy garage that's empty. In the wintertime, it's unbelievable. I had pictures to bring to the other two meetings that have been canceled that I went to for the variances and everything, and they kept, making them another day, another month. So when the snow is out there and they come plow that, the plow guys can't even get down there with a big plow. It's just unbelievable. There's no parking on that road at all. And my biggest concern is, if there's 9 apartments there, 2 cars each, that's 18 parking spots, where are the rest of these people going to park? Where are guests going to park? I have right now, in front of the driveway, I have cones in front of our driveway because in the middle of the night, I come home, sometimes it's 12 o'clock from work, and I can't even get into the driveway because someone's parked in my driveway hole, out on the road. You know what I'm saying? It's just a mess over there. And as far as you're saying, you keep talking to the King's Deli, he just rents there. Our family owns the building. So I have never been approached by them to talk to us about traffic, about, anything. But that's my major concern, traffic. There's cars that have been on that road for 5 years, 6 years that haven't even moved. But they're registered, and there's nothing that they can do about them, but they have not moved. Maybe about 4 houses down in one of the apartment building that holds probably about 6 families in there, there's a automobile shop in there that the guy does work in. And these cars are all that people the tow trucks constantly come down the road with cars that they dump off there. Then they park those in the road. Then those sit there in the road. I mean, it's just,
Are they doing?
I have pictures.
Are they doing
and-
work on the cars in the street?
Yeah, he does it in the back of the apartment building down there. Yeah, he has like a little side thing in his garage or whatever, and that's where he does this work. So the tow trucks come, I mean, I'm not talking like a little tow truck that, you know, is like hooked to the back of the truck. I'm talking a big flatbed trucks come down that road all the time, dump cars off. And then on the side, on the same side, a little ways down, there's been cars there that have been there for 5 years. I have pictures on my phone. They're not even shoveled out when it snows. They just park there and they're there forever. But they register them, and there's nothing that the cops can do. There's nothing that anybody can do because they're registered. So they can be out on that road. So that's my biggest concern. A couple of the tenants have gotten hit out there, right at the corner of Haley, people coming from Kings Highway into Haley, because the cars are all parked on both sides of the road, and then when they make the bend, they come in, and the cars, our tenant has gotten hit twice out there. So that's my biggest concern, you know? I mean, as far as the building or whatever it is, but it's the parking, you know? It's, you fight for a parking spot come wintertime, you fight for a parking spot at nighttime. You know, because there's so many people. There's, each house is a multi-dwelling house on that road. They're not one-family homes. They all at least have 2 to 6 apartments in there, in the whole street, both sides. And down at the bottom is all like a, I don't know, like apartment building or something that's down there, like condos or something. And they're all parked all over the place. I mean, the town, when the guy comes down with the plow, he just makes one sweep, and then the little town truck has to come down and circle around and clean in there. There's trucks down there, there's, you know, lawn trucks, there's covered, you drive down the road one day, you'd be amazed. Covered, you know, like, I don't know, like wherever they take their lawnmowers, like a covered trailer thing down there, and these things just sit there. I mean, which is okay, well, good, they're all down there, but, you know, I get it, 9 apartments, but you figure if that's 2 people in the house, even 3 people in there, you know, that's 3 cars it could be. Where's that going? Where's that overflow gonna go of the cars? And like I say, the road, yes, when it's not snowing, yeah, if you drive right, you can fit 2 cars through there. You know, but sometimes one has to wait. If it's a truck coming through and the cars are trying to get out, you have to wait. That's the biggest concern down there. I mean, it's just, you know, I don't know. I don't know what to say. You know, you call the police, you ask them to have the car moved. They call in the tag on it. It's registered. It can sit there forever. Nobody moves them. You know? So like I say, that's the biggest concern that I have on the side street. You know? And like I say, our tenants have gotten hit before there. And they come and, you know, no one's there every day, you know? Every day I'm there. Been there a long time. So, like I say, that's my biggest concern. If something can be done with the parking, or make sure that there's enough and that they're not going to be on that side street, and then you can't park in Haley because it's not, you know, it's 2 lanes there already. I mean, it's hard even with the deli. When the deli, you know, there used to be a no parking sign at the end of the White House after the deli, which we own. There used to be a no parking sign there right before the gas station that's vacant. And whoever came along took the no parking sign down. So now everybody parks in front of the deli to go in and get their sandwiches at lunchtime. When you come out of Haley, you can't even see to see if you can get out for the traffic coming down Kings Highway that way. I mean, it's like crazy coming out there at lunchtime. Because, you know, they're up on the sidewalk. You should go look at the sidewalk. The sidewalk's a total mess from everybody parking up on the sidewalk. And then they park there, and then when you go out, you can't even see the traffic coming down Kings Highway from Firestone. You gotta get like all the way out into the middle of the road just to see if you can go. So now we're gonna add, 9 apartments, that's great. I mean, it's beautiful, Everybody needs a place to live, and that's great, But it's just the parking, that's two cars, 3 cars, and you only got, 16 parking spots? So,
Thank you very
that's my biggest concern.
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate that. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to be heard? No? Okay. Thank you. Attorney Rizzio, any rebuttal?
Right. Chairman, it's funny that one of the reasons for these, and the members of the commission, one of the reasons the ZBA agenda did get delayed is we started with 17 units, went down to 12, and eventually after reducing keeping the same amount of parking spaces, that went down to 9 units. The issue we're also sympathetic to, because our project has to work, and we have to assure parking to our residents, which we believe we can do. And the issue really is not a zoning issue, it's a police issue, it's a overuse issue. We will accept the condition, we will not do any auto repairs in the garage. I can promise you that.
Well, one of the things that, I forget your name, I'm sorry, the member of the public said,
Yes.
was that there used to be a no parking sign on the street there, on Haley, on Kings Highway.
I think that's what
I thought it was on Haley. Is there?
You can't park on Kings Highway, is no parking in that. Well, on Kings, Haley is not, yeah.
Is there supposed to be no parking on one side or the other?
There's supposed to be no parking on Kings Highway, is my understanding. And that even though there is not a sign there, I know there's not a sign there, but I know there's not, we were not planning on using any on-street
Of course,
parking.
I understand you weren't. I'm trying to understand the lay of the land now.
So there's parking.
Because I've been up and down, I know the lot, I know the area very well. I have not yet driven down Haley.
There is
but
permitted parking on Haley Court on both sides. And I will tell you, I would think that most of those, there's 12 homes there. On Haley Court, there's 12 structures.
Did you just count those
Yeah,
during the break?
we went online.
Good.
And looked at the map.
12, 6
12
on each side?
plus 12 plus the, what do you call it, the King's Deli. And a lot of them are multifamilies, and a lot of them, I can tell you, are underparked. So really, we believe we're coming in with conforming parking, we're providing a
No,
garage.
I understand that.
And I think the general neighborhood parking has caused us to reduce our project so we can adequately handle everything on site. And we have the waiver, but the waiver, as I said, is instead of 2 per unit, we have 1.9 per unit.
Right. No, and you have a variance from ZBA
Correct.
for the number of spaces, for the number of units
Correct.
in the building. So,
Yeah.
and I understand that. I'm trying to get some more information to follow up on possibly some other things.
Sure.
But, okay.
I like to think that, like I said, all the changes in the plans before we got to you were a result of other neighbors expressing this neighbor's concern.
Yep.
And with that, I think we ended up with a quality project that addressed the needs of the neighborhood and made our project consistent with the neighborhood and consistent with your regulations.
Just a quick question.
Yeah, Commissioner Mackley.
Mr. Rizzio, what time of day do you know these pictures were taken? The ones that you sent around? Just to get a sense. Any idea?
I look at it because it would be midday.
Because I count.
It's not dark, right?
50
It was
no.
midday.
Yeah, 3 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock,
Yeah,
something like that. 2 o'clock. even.
usually in the afternoon.
There's 15 cars.
An
and
hour
there's
before
one
my
photo.
ZBA hearing, running as quickly as I could.
One photo of
There's 15 cars on Haley right now in this one photo. So,
Yeah.
on the street.
I will tell you that there is no doubt that you have people who overuse their properties, people who are running businesses out of their properties.
concern.
And
And I mean, that's
allegedly,
perhaps the most alarming thing that
Yes.
was said, but.
but I think our project will hopefully be a lightning rod for the redevelopment of these properties along Kings Highway so that you'll end up with properties that are more conforming in nature.
Right.
Yeah.
And for all those reasons, we respectfully request this commission grant this application. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll close the public hearing on this item, and I'll adjourn the meeting.